Now we're gonna talk about how you can protect yourself against ARP poisoning attacks. If we go back to how ARP poisoning attacks works and we just have a look on them, if you remember, the way they work is by exploiting two major security flaws in the ARP protocol. So the first one is that each ARP request or response is trusted. The second one is that clients accept responses even if they did not ask for it. So when I go to the router and when I go to the client and I tell him I am the router, he's gonna believe me straight away. And when I go to the router and tell him I am the client, he's gonna believe me again. Now, the way I tell the router and the client that I'm a different person, so the way I spoof my identity is by I tell that the target device have a different MAC address. So when I want to tell the router that I am the client, I tell him the person with the client IP has my MAC address. So in the ARP table that the router has, the MAC address of the client is going to change to mine. And when I do it to the client, so I'm going to tell the client the MAC address of the router is my MAC address. So the MAC address for the router at the client ARP table is going to change. So the first way to detect ARP poisoning attacks is only by looking at your ARP tables. So if I go here to my target device and I go to ARP-A, and we saw this in the first man in the middle video when we were talking about ARP poisoning, we can see the MAC address for the router. So it ends with 1F, AA1F. Now when I do my ARP attack, so I'm just going to do a simple ARP poison, same way that we always do it. Just going to hit enter. And if I go back to the target machine and I go ARP-A, as you can see here, I have the MAC address for the target device, for the router has changed. So it's still the router has this IP, but his MAC address is actually now the attacker's MAC address. So this is, if I go to if config plan 0, you'll see that this is the same MAC address that's showing up here as the router's MAC address. The router's actual MAC address is this. So this is an easy way of detecting when ARP poisoning is happening, when you're being poisoned. Another way, so this is very handy and very simple, but you won't be able to be doing this all the time to check if you're being poisoned or not. So an easier way is to use a tool that would actually monitor your ARP tables, and whenever something happens, whenever something suspicious happens, it's going to give you a warning. So I'm just going to make sure everything's back. Yeah, so when I stop the attack, you can see the MAC address is back to the normal MAC address. So we're gonna have it on a tool called look on a tool called XARP. Now this tool works on Linux and on Windows. And as you can see, you just run the tool, and even if I close it here, so this is on basic security, it's still gonna detect it. I'm gonna close it. It's gonna run in the background here, and I'm gonna go back to Kali and I'm gonna do another ARP poison. Now, we can only see one group here, so I'm just going to quit it and do it again. As you can see, I didn't get the two groups. And now I have my two groups. I'll go here, and as you can see, we have an alert. And the alert tells us that the MAC address of 192.168.1.1, which is the router, has changed to something else. Now we can also, from here, we can see that the device that has this MAC address, so the device that the MAC address of the router has been changed to is a connected device, is another device with me on the network, and it has this IP. So now we actually know this is the attacker, because this device's MAC address and the router's apparent MAC address, this is a spoofed MAC address, are the same. So now we actually know that 192.168.1.11 is the person who's trying to do ARP poisoning on our network. Now these methods only work on your own device. So if another device is being ARP poisoned, so if there's another device on my network is being poisoned, I won't be able to detect it this way, because this only monitors my own ARP table. It doesn't have any access to anyone else's ARP table.